there! Shipwreck! I'm bringing somebody new to the team! Meet Tunnel Rat. His resume is extensive. Put it there, partner! Yo, Joe! Boom! Whoosh! They're flanking! Watch my 6! Gun-ho! Duke!
What do we have here? Little Mikey still playing with G.I. Joe action figures. Now which one of these is Mikey's favorite? I'm guessing this one, Tunnel Rat.
Leave me alone! Stop! I mean it!
Let's see how good he marches without legs.
No! Please! Please don't do that! Wait! Don't!
Grow up, Mikey. Go run off and tell your mommy.
Mikey clutched the small G. I, Joe Figure Tunnel Rat. File name Lee, Nicky. His legs in one hand and the rest in his other. His father had promised to fix him, but had kept putting it off. Tunnel Rat. Mikey knew all there was to know about him. His secondary MOS as a combat engineer, the various subgroups only a true Joe would know, like Night Force, Sonic Fighters, Desert Patrol Squad. Tunnel Rat in the factious world of Joe had just like each figure an entire backstory. Real name Nicky Lee, rank of Sergeant E5. He was of Trinidadian Chinese descent, and according to Joe lore lived in Brooklyn, New York, prior to joining the U.S. Army. Graduating from the Army Ranger School at Fort Benning, serving time in Grenada. The action figure specialized in explosive ordnance disposal and was familiar with most NATO and Warsaw Pact explosive devices, including small arms. Mikey was completely versed in the lore, knowing of Tunnel Rat's return as a reservist, and his subsequent call into action to help battle the returned Serpentor. When Joe, Cobra, and the Coil battled it out on Cobra Island, Tunnel Rat was part of Assault Team Beta, and Mikey, for all intents and purposes, was alongside him for each battle in his imagination. And when Tunnel Rat was wounded during the mission and had a lengthy recovery, Mikey himself faked the flu to his parents' missing school, but believing it was in solidarity for his beloved Tunnel Rat, for the staff sergeant was always Mikey's favorite for some unknown reason. Unlike his other well-loved and slightly battered Joes, this one was well pristine, up until his run-in with the school bully. But Mikey, leading up to that faithful day, always felt it important to handle the action figure with more care and respect. He liked Tunnel Rat's gritty look, the tiger-striped camouflage paint on his face, the goggles pushed up onto his forehead, the determined set of his jaw, and the array of tools strapped to his vest. He imagined the daring missions they would go on together, crawling through the crawl space of his family's house, finding hidden passages. Now, with what Mikey believed to be sufficient, he gently laid the action figure legs and all on his bedside desk. Then, think a purposeful tilt directed the desk lamp to illuminate his makeshift operating table, and with the glue gun he had acquired from the garage and rubber band. He painstakingly reattached Tunnel Rat's legs. Mikey, seemingly pleased with his impromptu battlefield aid, smiled, welcoming back Tunnel Rat to the team. Then, one late afternoon, while organizing boxes for his mother in their attic, he came across a particularly dusty box. Opening it, he peered down to see a single item, a small, tarnished silver key. It wasn't like any key he'd seen before, ornate and somehow old. On a whim, he tried it on the door of an antique wooden cupboard tucked away in a shadowy corner of the attic. To his surprise, the lock clicked open. Intrigued, Mikey placed his beloved Tunnel Rat figure inside the cupboard. He wasn't sure why, just a strange impulse. He closed the door and on another impulse turned the little silver key. A faint click echoed from within. Not quite sure what he was expecting, Mikey shrugged, figuring it was just an old cupboard with a working lock. Hearing a call from his mother that dinner was ready, he turned to leave, forgetting to retrieve his action figure. But then a tiny scratching sound from inside the cupboard made him pause.
What is that? Hello?
He held his breath, listening intently. The scratching came again, followed by a muffled grunt. Mikey's eyes widened. He fumbled with the key, his heart hammering. As the cupboard door creaked open, Mikey peered inside, his breath catching in his throat. The plastic figure was gone. In its place stood a miniature man, no taller than Mikey's hand, clad in the familiar olive green uniform of Tunnel Rat. But this was no mere toy. This Tunnel Rat blinked, his eyes adjusting to the dim light of Mikey's room. He was real.
He did the crime. He ought to do the time. Duke, is that you? Did you lock me in here?
The tiny commando, still slightly disoriented, took in his surroundings with a professional scan. His gaze flicked from the towering furniture to the oversized objects on Mikey's desk. A pencil that looked like a log, a stapler like a metal behemoth. He instinctively crouched, his hand reaching for his knife.
I'm Mikey.
Mikey breathed, murmured. Tunnel Rat's head snapped towards the sound. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, locked onto Mikey. For a moment, there was a tense silence, broken only by the thumping of Mikey's heart in his ears. Then, in a voice surprisingly deep for its size, the figure spoke.
Where am I? This isn't the abandoned subway tunnel. And who are you?
He squinted at Mikey, suspicion evident in his tiny features.
You're awfully big.
Mikey, still reeling from the impossible sight, could only stammer,
I'm Mikey. And you're Tunnel Rat.
He pointed a trembling finger at the miniature soldier.
You were a toy.
Tunnel Rat frowned, confusion clouding his features. He looked down at himself, flexing his tiny fingers.
A toy? What are you talking about? I was on a recon mission. Cobra had set up a base. Wait a minute.
His eyes narrowed again, this time with a flicker of something akin to alarm. He remembered a strange sensation, a brief flicker of nothingness. Before Mikey could explain the magical cupboard or the silver key, a sudden, sharp knock echoed from downstairs. "Mikey, dinner's ready," his mom called. Tunnel Rat instantly went rigid. "Cobra," he whispered, his eyes darting around the room, searching for a threat. Mikey, equally startled, grabbed a nearby shoebox and quickly scooped up the bewildered commando.
No, that's just my mom. You have to be quiet.
He slammed the lid on the shoebox, muffling Tunnel Rat's confused protests. As Mikey hurried downstairs, the small silver key still clutched in his pocket, he couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet suburban life had just taken a very unexpected and potentially very dangerous turn. He had a living, breathing G.I. Joe in a shoebox, and he had no idea what to do next. And somehow, he had a sinking feeling that this was just the beginning. Mikey carefully navigated the stairs, the shoebox feeling strangely heavy in his hands, not just with the weight of the tiny soldier, but with the enormity of the secret it contained. His mind raced, trying to process the impossible. A real, live G.I. Joe. It sounded like something straight out of one of his wildest daydreams, yet here he was, smuggling him down for dinner. He managed to slip into his chair at the kitchen table, the shoebox tucked precariously under his leg. His parents were already chatting about their day, oblivious to the extraordinary stowaway beneath. Mikey tried to act normal, answering their questions in monosyllables, his gaze drifting nervously towards the shoebox every few seconds. Suddenly, a muffled thump came from under the table. Mikey froze, his heart leaping into his throat. His mom looked at him, a questioning eyebrow raised.
Yeah, just bumped my leg.
He mumbled, a flush creeping up his neck. He subtly shifted his leg, hoping to keep Tunnel Rat contained. Inside the shoebox, Tunnel Rat was far from quiet. Disoriented and still convinced he was in enemy territory, was attempting to breach his confinement. He kicked at the cardboard walls, his tiny but surprisingly strong hands scrabbling for purchase. He muttered tactical jargon to himself, assessing the structural integrity of his prison.
Cobra, reinforced cardboard. Minimal give, possible weak point at the seam.
Another, louder thump. Mikey's dad chuckled. "Sounds like you've got a little drummer down there." Mikey forced a weak smile.
Yeah, just restless leg syndrome.
He offered lamely, earning him a skeptical look from his father. Dinner felt like an eternity. Every clink of silverware, every casual question from his parents sent waves of panic through him. He could only imagine what Tunnel Rat was thinking, trapped in the darkness, probably formulating an escape plan. Finally, excusing himself, Mikey retreated to his room, the shoebox clutched tightly. He locked the door and placed the box on his desk, carefully lifting the lid. Tunnel Rat blinked in the sudden light, his small face grim. He was covered in bits of torn cardboard.
Report!
He demanded, his voice tight with urgency.
What is this? Dinner? Is it what we call chow? And who are these giants?
Mikey sighed, running a hand through his hair.
Look, you're not in a Cobra base. Those are my parents. And dinner's, well, it's food we eat.
Food! Why weren't we engaging the enemy?
There is no enemy.
He knew he sounded ridiculous trying to explain his normal life to a miniature commando. Tunnel Rat stared at him unconvinced.
You're in my room. You were a toy.
Mikey exclaimed, his voice rising in frustration. The word hung in the air, and for the first time, Mikey saw a flicker of something other than suspicion in Tunnel Rat's eyes. It was confusion, maybe even a hint of fear. He looked down at his hands again, flexing them as if trying to understand their newfound reality.
A toy?
He repeated softly, the soldierly bravado momentarily gone.
But I remember the tunnels, the hiss of the vipers.
Mikey realized then that this wasn't just a toy come to life. This was a real person, with memories and experiences, thrust into a world beyond his comprehension. The wonder of it all was quickly being replaced by a sense of responsibility and a growing unease about the potential consequences of this impossible magic. He had a feeling his quiet life was about to get a whole lot louder and a whole lot more complicated.
All right, kid. Let's say I believe you. This here whole story on me being a toy and all. How about we start by making introductions? What's your name, son?
I'm Mikey.
And well, how did I come to be in this here room for giants?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I found this only silver key. Found the chest it worked on.
All right, keep it going.
Well, I put your action figure in the chest. Turn the key and...
Sounds like Destrotech. Maybe some shrinking ray device.
Mr. Tunnel Rat. I don't think that's it. You see, G.I. Joe and Cobra is, well, a toy line and well cartoon for kids. And comics, I forgot that one.
Toyline Comics? Who is in charge of this outfit?
Well, I guess Hasbro?
Ah, Hasbro. Sounds like a special sector of Cobra, if you ask me.
Mikey went to his dresser, frantically looking for an issue of G.I. Joe.
What? I was there. The smell of gunpowder.
Here, see, it's a comic book. You're in it! Cobra Island Civil War in this issue. Your expertise helps your fellow Joes escape from Cobra soldiers. And in here, in another, you aid in a rescue from Cobra's Iron Grenadiers.
Well, kid, I don't know how or why, but somehow I'm here.
A new idea then sparked in Mikey's mind, a risky experiment fueled by pure curiosity. He, after asking permission, carefully picked up the now tiny Tunnel Rat and carried him over to his closet, a slightly messy space with a lock key in the doorknob he never once had knowledge of, or the key for that matter.
What if the size of the space had something to do with the magic?
Okay, I see where you're going with this, kid.
With a deep breath, Mikey placed Tunnel Rat on the floor of his closet. He gently the door shut, the click echoing in the quiet room. Then, heart pounding, he tried the silver keep that he had stowed away in his pocket, slowly inserting it in the lock. The key fit to his surprise. He then proceeded to lock the closet, then after a moment, reopen it. Standing there, blinking in the dim light filtering from Mikey's window, was Tunnel Rat. But he wasn't miniature anymore. He was life-sized, maybe a little taller than Mikey's dad, his rugged features and determined gaze now strikingly real. He looked around the closet, his head well past the clothing rack.
What in the...
Tunnel Rat muttered, his voice a low rumble. He flexed his hands, his eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and something akin to awe. Mikey could only stare, his experiment having worked in a way he hadn't fully grasped. He had a real, live, life-size G.I. Joe standing in front of him. This was way beyond playing. A sudden thought jolted him. His parents. They were out for their usual afternoon walk, but they could be back any minute.
Quick!
Mikey hissed, grabbing Tunnel Rat's arm and pulling him out of the closet.
We need to get you! Less you!
He led Tunnel Rat into his parents' bedroom, a forbidden zone usually off-limits. He rummaged through his father's closet, pulling out a pair of worn jeans, a plain t-shirt, and an old baseball cap.
Quick, put these on!
They were a bit small on Tunnel Rat, but they were a far cry from his distinctive military uniform. Mikey urged, practically shoving the clothes into Tunnel Rat's hands. Tunnel Rat, still processing his sudden growth spurt, complied with a bewildered expression. Once Tunnel Rat was somewhat incognito, sitting awkwardly on the edge of Mikey's bed in the slightly too small clothing, Mikey finally took a deep breath.
Look,
He began, his voice a little shaky.
you really were a toy! And, well, now you see, the closet made you big!
Tunnel Rat listened intently, his brow furrowed. He ran a hand over the unfamiliar fabric of the t-shirt.
What in the Cape of Cobra is this? A toy? Come alive?
He shook his head slowly.
This is outside my operational parameters.
Mikey nodded, understanding his confusion.
I know. It's magic, I guess. I don't understand it either.
The two of them talked, much on the inner workings of Joe and how it all was formulated. As well as Tunnel Rat's past, his training, his deployments, and his joining of the G.I. Joes. Mikey hesitated, then decided to confide in his newfound life-sized friend.
The thing is, at school and at the park, some of the older kids, they pick on me. They call me names, push me around.
The words tumbled out, a familiar knot of shame tightening in his stomach. Tunnel Rat's gaze sharpened. He leaned forward, his usual soldierly intensity returning.
They pick on you? Explain.
Mikey recounted the taunts, the snatched baseball cap, the feeling of helplessness that always washed over him. He looked down at his hands, unable to meet Tunnel Rat's gaze. Tunnel Rat was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke, his voice low and resonant, each word carrying a weight of experience.
Listen to me, kid. You are not defined by the words of cowards. Their weakness is in their cruelty, and your strength lies in your resilience. Every mission, every operation involves facing fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of the enemy. But we don't let fear paralyze us. We use it. We channel it into focus, into determination.
He stood up, his presence filling the small room.
They will try to diminish you. They will try to make you feel small, but don't let them. Don't let them win. Kid, you have something they don't. A good heart. And you have the courage to be yourself, even when it's hard. That's a strength they can never take away.
He clapped Mikey on the shoulder, his touch surprisingly gentle despite his rugged appearance.
Remember this, kid. The toughest battles are fought within ourselves. And you, kid, you have the grit to win those battles. Don't ever forget that. You see, knowing is half the battle. The rest is, well, mere execution and a sharp knife.
Mikey looked up at Tunnel Rat, a warmth spreading through his chest. For the first time in a long time, the knot of shame loosened. He felt a flicker of something new, something akin to confidence. Whenever the risk of discovery by his parents loomed, Mikey would quickly usher Tunnel Rat back into the container, the silver key shrinking him back down to his familiar plastic form. The small box became their secret weapon, a way to navigate the normal world while harboring an extraordinary ally. He wasn't just a toy that came to life. He was a friend, a protector, and a hero. And as he subtly slipped the silver key into his pocket, Ready to shrink his extraordinary companion back to normal size before his parents saw him, Mikey knew their adventures were far from over. Their secret and their bond was stronger than ever. A few days later, Mikey, emboldened by Tunnel Rat's words, suggested a trip to the park. Tunnel Rat, still getting used to his larger form and the bewildering normalcy of suburban life, agreed, curious to observe this playground. He wore Mikey's dad's clothes, the baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, trying his best to look inconspicuous, which was difficult for a man with his military bearing. As they approached the swings, Mikey tensed. He saw them, the group of older boys who always made his life miserable. They spotted him too, and a smirk spread across their leader's face.
Well, look who it is.
The leader sneered, sauntering over with his cronies. Mikey stood his ground, a newfound resolve hardening his gaze. Before he could respond, a calm voice cut through the air.
Is there a problem here?
Tunnel Rat stepped forward, his presence radiating an unexpected authority. He wasn't overtly threatening, but there was a quiet intensity in his eyes that made the bullies pause.
Guys, Mighty Mikey, come to cry to your mommy. How's your G.I. Joe action figure? Who's this Mikey, your bodyguard?
The leader scoffed, trying to regain his bravado. Tunnel Rat simply looked at the leader, his gaze unwavering. Then the bully turned his glare at Mikey. Tunnel Rat then, with a definitive tone, said,
Hey, bud. A fight is won in one's own mind, well before the first blow is struck. Something you might keep in mind. And son, well, ignorance yours specifically, is the quickest path to ruin. But truth, that you see, can be a weapon, and the rest is merely execution. Others with simple minds might choose to fight, but I already know the outcome, kid. Now I'm going to give you till the count of 5 to get yourself off this playground. 1, 2, 5.
The older boys, completely bewildered by the intensity of this man, stumbled backward, their bravado evaporating. They looked at each other, their faces pale. This wasn't the easy target they were used to. This bodyguard was something else entirely. Without a word, the bullies turned and fled, scrambling away as fast as their legs could carry them, muttering about telling their parents and crazy guys.
Hey kid, provide their names, home addresses, and serial numbers, and by tomorrow morning they won't be a problem anymore.
No, that won't be necessary. I think they got the point.
Word spread like wildfire through the park and then to Mikey's school. The story of Mikey and the mysterious muscle-bound man who had scared off the notorious bullies became legend. No one quite knew who Tunnel Rat was, but they knew he was someone to be reckoned with. Mikey, for the first time, walked with a sense of pride, the whispers around him no longer laced with mockery. Their conversations were a unique blend of Mikey's boyhood wonder and Tunnel Rat's pragmatic military perspective. Tunnel Rat had shared snippets of his missions, the hushed tension of navigating underground Cobra lairs, the camaraderie of his fellow Joes, and the unwavering commitment to their cause. In turn, had described the simple joys and challenges of his own life, school, friends, and the occasional scraped knee. He found himself explaining concepts he had previously taken for granted, the purpose of homework, through the bewildered eyes of his miniature guest. Then one evening, while his parents were out for a dinner party with friends, Mikey noticed that his assortment of Cobra action figures were not in their usual place. He frantically searched far and wide, but with no avail. Then, just as he had given up, he noticed the key inserted into his closet lock. It was then the magnitude of what may have happened swelled over him. He slowly opened the closet door, empty. Then, coming from the basement, he could hear a voice.
Calamity most foul! This way, you fool! What would you have me do with Washington, Destro? Pepper it with spitballs? And for this house, we must completely tear it down!
Mickey's mom had inadvertently placed his Cobra action figures into his closet, turning the key. Now it would appear Cobra, Destro, and an unknown number of his cronies were in the basement. Mikey quickly grabbed the shoebox Tunnel Rat had been resting in plastic stasis and frantically placed him in the closet, locking and unlocking it quickly. Tunnel Rat, getting his bearings, muttered,
More kids at the playground giving you a hard time, kid?
Not exactly. Bigger, much bigger problems. Cobra Commander, Destro, and I don't know. A whole lot of others are in my basement.
Cobra? Okay, kid, here's what needs to happen. Accessories, we need 'em. So action figures come with accessories, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, kid, go and find my pulse beam laser pistol, M60, and while you're at it, grab Duke and Flint. We're bringing them to life.
Oh, yeah. Are you sure?
As sure as I am that Cobra is a ruthless terrorist organization hell-bent on world domination.
Right on it!
ran to his toy box, then placed the action figure weapons, as well as Duke and Flint, into his closet, finally turning the key. He brought the action figures and weapons from plastic to life-size and real. Mikey watched in awe as the closet door swung open. Stepping out were two more giants of his childhood imagination, now flesh and blood. Duke, the first sergeant with blonde hair and a steely gaze, checked the chamber of his laser rifle. Flint, the warrant officer with his signature beret and shotgun, gave a confident nod. Tunnel Rat, now fully armed with the heavy machine gun Mikey had retrieved, looked at the team.
Hi, kid. Ready to get this party started?
Situation report. Hostiles in the lower level, unknown numbers, high-value targets confirmed. Cobra Commander and Destro.
Duke took command instantly.
All right, Joes. We're in a residential zone. Collateral damage must be 0. We protect the civilian,
Gesturing to a wide-eyed Mikey.
and we neutralize the threat. Move out.
They moved through the hallway with professional silence, a stark contrast to the thumping of Mikey's heart. At the top of the basement stairs, they heard the screeching voice of the enemy.
House? We must completely tear it down to be made way for a proper Cobra base to be built. And where did that Baroness run off to? Find her! While you're at it, find the Dreadnoks, too. We will be fine once we muster the Crimson Guard and the rest of the Cobra troopers. Destro, get the hiss tank!
I'm detecting seismic activity upstairs. We may be compromised.
Destro's metallic voice boomed. Duke signaled Mikey to stay back.
Kid, get down!
He tossed a small sphere down the stairs. Bang! A blinding light filled the stairwell. The three commandos stormed down the stairs, their boots thudding against the wood. Mikey, unable to resist, peeked around the doorframe. The basement had been transformed into a war zone. Cobra Commander was taking cover behind the dryer, firing blue laser blasts wildly into the ceiling. Destro was flipping over Mikey's dad's workbench to use as a shield, firing rockets from his wrist gauntlet that exploded against the concrete walls in showers of sparks. A dozen Cobra Vipers, generic infantry Mikey must have left in the bin, were utilizing the piles of laundry as sandbags.
He's got the drop and is shooting mortars.
Flint shouted, racking his shotgun, vaulting over an old exercise bike, firing non-lethal suppression rounds that sent Vipers tumbling backward.
Call in reinforcements now!
Tunnel Rat slid across the linoleum floor, positioning himself behind the water heater. His machine gun roared, not firing bullets, but the familiar red lasers of the cartoon, pinning Cobra Commander down.
Retreat! Retreat!
Cobra Commander shrieked.
Cobra! I cannot, you fool!
Destro bellowed. Duke saw his opening, leaped from the staircase, rolling across the floor and landing right in front of the dryer. He leveled his rifle at the commander's chrome faceplate. With the leaders cornered, the fight drained out of the Vipers. The basement fell silent, save for the hum of the furnace and the heavy breathing of the soldiers. The dusty basement was suddenly filled with the scream of twisting metal and the roar of a diesel engine that shouldn't have existed. Plaster rained down like snow as the ceiling buckled, and the massive yellow and black treads of the Cobra earthquake ground through the floorboards.
You fool! A child? You come with a child?
Game over, Cobra. Incoming! Ground pounder.
Duke yelled, shoving Mikey behind a heavy cast-iron boiler just as a ground-pounder missile streaked across the room, vaporizing a stack of old National Geographics.
He's got the drop and is shooting mortars. Kid, get down!
Tunnel Rat hollered over the din. From the cockpit of the now massive construction vehicle, Cobra Commander's muffled laughter echoed through the house.
Yield. Tear that house down faster than a Cobra strike, Destro. Who needs a house when we have a Cobra base in the making, huh? This way, you fool! Retreat! Retreat!
The earthquake's rapid-fire laser cannon hissed, stitching a line of molten red across the basement floor. The Joes laid down cover fire, but the sheer scale of the earthquake, a vehicle meant to level cities, was too much for 3 men in a cramped cellar. The vehicle's pivoting racks swung around, the 50mm turret spitting lead that chewed up the stairs. In the chaos, a mechanical claw extended from the earthquake's chassis, scooping up the prone forms of Cobra Commander and Destro. The commander shrieked as the vehicle began to reverse, its massive treads chewing a path back up through the kitchen floor. With a final deafening boom, the earthquake fired its remaining mortars, creating a curtain of smoke and debris. By the time the dust settled, the roar of the engine was fading into the distance. The kitchen was a ruin, the closet door hung off its hinges, and the Cobras were gone, taken into the real world in a vehicle built for total destruction. Duke stood up, brushing gray soot from his uniform. He looked at the gaping hole in the ceiling, then at Mikey.
They're out there now, son. In your world. And they've got heavy armor.
Flint checked his remaining shell. Mikey looked at the silver key still warm in his hand. The secret wasn't just in his room anymore. It was moving down the suburban streets at 60 miles per hour.
Don't worry. I've still got the rest of the toy box in the attic. My parents are going to kill me. The house is destroyed.
Mikey said, his voice steadying.
Check this out. I'm gonna be a stuntman.
Whoa there, partner. Hold your horses and your handlebars.
Duke, you're real.
I'm as real as the danger of 3rd-degree burns, kid. Using flammable materials to spice up. A bike jump is a one-way ticket to the infirmary. Fire spreads fast and gravity? Well, gravity's a Cobra agent that never sleeps.
Gosh, I didn't think of that. I guess I'll just use a ramp and wear my helmet instead.
Smart move. Safety gear isn't just for the battlefield, it's for the backyard, too. Now, let's get those boxes extinguished before your mom sees the lawn.
Thanks, Duke.
Don't mention it, because knowing is half the battle.